Bobby Lee and Serene Mishtala. The Hitchhiker's Guide to Accessibility. AliCamp. Gold sponsors ANZ, Intopia and Telstra. Silver sponsors Canva and Coles. Supporters Rumour, the design recruiter.
Mission objectives. What is digital accessibility? Why is it important? Do I have to do it? How do I know if I've done it right? And where can I start? Also, what's happening today?
What is happening today?
I have no idea. No, I'm joking.
Why don't we get a show of hands to see if it's the first time for anyone at AliCamp today? Nice! Wow! There you go. Even my boss, apparently. Okay, we're going to start off with a quote from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Space is big, really big. You just won't believe how vastly, hugely, mind-bogglingly big it is. You may think it's a long way down to the road to the chemist, but that's just peanuts to space. Douglas Adams, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. We say this quote because space can be a lot like the digital world, the hugely, mind-bogglingly World Wide Web. There are galaxies of information to discover and learn, vast areas to traverse and explore, but sometimes, just like in space, our journey can be treacherous and full of obstacles. Digital accessibility is all about reducing these obstacles, improbable or not. Okay.
Did you need me to use that? Interchangeably. Okay. Just wanted to check that I'm not.
It's on.
Help.
How about now? Yeah?
Awesome. Okay. Before we begin, I'm sure some of you are silently asking yourself, what on earth does A11Y mean? If that's you, don't worry, let me help. Firstly, it's pronounced Ali, not ally.
Ali?
Yeah.
Ali.
Yeah, not
Ali.
Ali. No, not ally. Yeah. And definitely not A11Y. It's a word you'll hear and see a lot over the next few days. So let's rehearse it now. We kind of already did that, but it's, yeah, Ali.
Ali?
Yeah.
Ali.
Yeah.
Not
Ally.
like Ali McBeal.
Oh, A11Y.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ali.
Ali. Yeah, we got it. The number 11 is odd, but it actually represents the 11 letters between the A and the Y in the word accessibility. It's truly groundbreaking stuff.
Groundbreaking stuff.
Completely. Now we're familiar with the word, let's move on. So, what is digital accessibility? Accessibility is commonly referred to as Ali. You're welcome. Digital accessibility means that everyone can use technology equally. It allows any person, regardless of their ability, to interact, understand, and navigate around the internet. What technology have you used?
I used a screen reader yesterday quite extensively, which was very good. And this morning I used Google Maps because I didn't know how to get here.
Same. Do you have the clicker?
I have the clicker. All right.
There you go.
The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG, it's a single shared standard for web content accessibility that meets the needs of individuals, organisations and governments internationally. First published in 1999, WCAG 2.1 was published in June 2018, and WCAG 2.2, which we're currently using, was published in October 2023. Broadly, it contains principles which flow into guidelines, which flow into success criteria. And the WCAG is, I had other notes, right? Web content refers to the information in a web page or web application, including information such as text, images or sounds, and code or markup that defines structure and presentation. Having said that, the accessibility guidelines in WCAG can also be applied to native and mobile apps. Much like Douglas Adams' space analogy from before, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines can feel vastly, hugely, and mind-bogglingly big when you're first introduced to it. WCAG is made up of 4 major principles. These principles contain several guidelines, and these guidelines contain success criteria through which we can access and improve digital experience for the characteristics that we mentioned earlier, being vision, hearing, mobility, speech, and cognition. Before we explore the 4 principles, it's important to remember one thing. A key aspect of WCAG that comes into play is that WCAG is open to interpretation. Thankfully, we'll have some tips later to help with this. But for now, our tips are, firstly, talk to people. Discussions with your colleagues and peers around specific criterion and intricacies can ensure improved collective understanding of accessibility at your workplace. We do this just about every day at Utopia. Secondly, every WCAG success criterion has an understanding document which goes into further detail about the benefits to certain user groups, some examples, and sufficient techniques to meet the criteria. Thirdly, try not to get caught up in the pass or fail states of the success criteria, but rather what will provide the best experience for users. And last but not least, it's important to remember that we're all still learning and that accessibility is an ongoing journey.
Thank you. Principles of Web Accessibility. The four major principles of WCAG follow the acronym PAW, which stands for Perceivable, Operable, Understandable, and Robust. Why isn't it working? Amazing. Perceivable. Users must be able to perceive the information being presented. It can't be invisible to all senses. For example, providing captions on videos for people who can't hear, adding audio descriptions for people who can't see, and presenting information with good colour contrast so text is easy to read. A good question to ask yourself is there anything on my website that a person who is blind, has low vision, deaf, or hard of hearing won't be able to perceive? 2. Operable. Users must be able to operate the interface. The interface cannot require interaction that a user cannot perform. For example, make functionality available from a keyboard. Not all users navigate using a mouse. Help users navigate and find content. Give them enough time, and do not use content that causes seizures or physical reaction. This can be done by ensuring animations and multimedia content, can be paused or turned off, and by avoiding flashing or strobing content. A good question to ask yourself is, can I navigate this site using a keyboard? If not, that's usually a sign that some users might be missing out. 3. Understandable. Users must be able to understand the information, as well as how to use the user interface. These elements cannot be beyond a user's understanding. For example, make text readable and understandable, make content appear and operate in predictable ways, and help users avoid and correct mistakes. A good question to ask yourself is, are all instructions easy to understand? And remember, the internet needs to be forgiving when humans make mistakes. Make sure there are warnings, cancellations, and clear error messages to help us recover. 4. Robust. The content must be robust enough to survive being viewed on a machine powered by pure and probability. In other words, it should work almost anywhere. Users must be able to access content. As technologies advance and user agents evolve, the content should remain accessible. For example, maximize compatibility with user tools, use clean best practice code, and do not restrict platforms, assistive technology, or browsers. A good question to ask yourself is, can our website be viewed across multiple platforms and browsers? There we go.
All right. Now that we've learned about the principles of the Web Accessibility Guidelines, let's discuss why accessibility is important. To start, web accessibility is considered a human right. The web is such an integral part of our lives today in that we use it to work, to keep in touch with our family, and to engage with the community. For that reason, the United Nations enshrines it as a human right. Next, having an inaccessible digital product denies the right to equal access and opportunities. With companies moving to digital first or already using digital methods to share information with customers, we need to make sure that everyone can complete the tasks that they want to or need to do. When companies provide an accessible product, it increases the maximum reach for their work. Again, having an accessible product benefits everyone, not just people with disabilities. There are situations where accessibility solutions can help everyone in one way or another. Some examples are closed captions for videos, or providing descriptive error messages in tax forms, or clear headings in recipes. And if those points don't convince you, or your boss, or your co-workers, it's also a legal requirement for government and essential services to have accessible websites, which we'll go into on the next slide. Okay, and here we have the web accessibility policies that girt the digital landscape in Australia. For the federal government, there's the Digital Service Standard, aka the Standard. It is a set of 10 criteria for designing and delivering government services. From there, state and territory governments may also be required to follow other legislation, like the National Transition Strategy, which was originally run between 2010 and 2014, and any other state policies and regulations, such as Accessibility and Inclusivity Standard in Western Australia and the Disability Act of 2006 from Victoria, where we are presenting. And to round us up, the vastly, hugely, mind-bogglingly big one, the Disability Discrimination Act. It has been in effect since 1992, and it makes it unlawful to discriminate against a person because of their disability. This act covers people who have both a temporary or a permanent disability. The DDA was put in place to ensure that essential services, like the services provided by the Australian government, are provided in a non-discriminatory and accessible manner. There are many country-specific legislations that enshrine accessibility for people in those countries, but we won't dive into them today. I will mention that some of you may have heard about the European Accessibility Act, and some others of you may have heard about how Australia is in Eurovision. I mention that because it's important to know who your product services. Okay, I want to dive into the standard just a little bit. The standard has two standout criteria for accessibility and inclusion. These are number 2, which is know your user. This means deeply understanding the context and reasons that users choose or avoid a service and will reveal how to make it more valuable to them. And number 3, leave no one behind. This means making a deliberate effort to challenge assumptions and design for marginalized users will ensure the service is inclusive, accessible, and useful for all. Okay. At the end of the day, which benchmark should you use when assessing accessibility on your website? The most common benchmark is derived from WCAG. There are 86 testable success criteria across 3 conformance levels, level A, AA, and level AAA. The most common benchmark is WCAG 2.2 AA, and this is practiced across government and private corporations. Level AA means conforming to all level A and level AA criteria. There are 55 of them in total. Having the benchmark set at AA only means that this is a minimum. It is possible to strive to meet some AAA success criteria if they are communicated well and planned for. Some of them are quite achievable to meet. For example, the success criterion 2.4.9, link purpose, brackets, link only. This criterion asks that the purpose of a link can be identified by the link text alone, which means no more writing click here or read more links. More writing, this is Ricky, this is a photo of Ricky looking at me presenting at Alico. Or success criterion 1.4.6, contrast, brackets, enhanced, one of my favorites, where text and images of text have a contrast ratio of at least 7:1, with some exceptions for decorative text, logo types, and large text. These things can be achieved quite purposefully if purpose is put behind them, such as planning for color schemes to hit the contrast ratio and having a strong style guide as to provide link purposes when writing blogs and articles. Okay. Here's another quote from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's an important and popular fact that things are not always what they seem. I'm going to use this quote to segue into the next topic of evaluation. Following WCAG 2.2A and AA criteria is one thing, but it's a whole other different kettle of Babelfish to interpret and evaluate a product against WCAG 2.2. So, how can you evaluate accessibility once you've set the benchmark? Or in other words, how do I know if what I've done is right? There are a few things you can do to determine if your content is accessible. Firstly, the WCAG Evaluation Methodology Report Tool can be used to create a structured report of accessibility evaluation findings. It does not perform automated checks, but does allow you to capture your findings properly through a guided form. When it comes to evaluating your content, an accessibility audit will identify how compliant your content is to the WCAG guidelines. For everyone playing along, there are a few simple tests that you can run yourself today. For example, put your computer in high contrast mode via the settings. Can you perceive everything? Are links, buttons, and meaningful elements still visible? Secondly, navigate using only your keyboard. Can you see where you are on the page? Do you get trapped anywhere? Does the order of elements flow in a logical way? And thirdly, use a screen reader and run it over your website. Does everything you hear make sense and match what is presented visually? There are free screen readers that you can use for this. On Mac and iPhones, users have access to VoiceOver built into the machines. Windows users have Narrator, or you can download a screen reader called Non-Visual Desktop Access, more commonly known as NVDA. While you can conduct an audit yourself, getting some outside help can ensure that you're provided with the correct solutions to resolve any barriers that do exist in Topia. To wrap up, one important point is that there is a great return on investment. One important point that has great return on investment is to invest in usability testing alongside people with disability. Technical compliance alone does not always equate to a usable or user-friendly product. User research and usability testing should be practiced regularly and provide valuable insight that may surprise you. To make accessibility and WCAG a little less scary, we have 5 quick accessibility wins to help you and your friends gain some accessibility momentum. If you're using images, make sure you give them a text alternative. This allows screen readers to announce a description to users, and if there isn't a text alternative, screen reader users might hear nothing, but they could also hear the URL path to the image, which means they either don't know the image exists or they get information that's not usable for them at all. Make your links descriptive. As I touched on earlier, this means avoid labeling links as click here or read more. This helps screen reader users, as one way to navigate a page is by getting a whole list of links for the page. And if they all say click here or read more, that's not very helpful. What's the first click here compared to the 40-second click here? It's going to be hard for them to know what's going on without the surrounding context. Therefore, providing meaningful links helps them, and it also helps everyone else know where they're going to go before they click that link. And don't convey information with just color. Studies suggest that about 2% of the population, or in particular 1 in 12 men, have some form of color blindness. Using color to convey things such as statuses and errors would mean that users are excluded from understanding this information. For example, there are add to cart buttons where they just turn green to tell you that it's been added to cart. The product would need another method to tell people the same thing, so that it might be changing the label text to say added, or a little tick icon to portray that it was successful. If you were using color only to portray information, you can include an icon, text, or patterns to make it understandable for everyone so that it's not just color alone. Next, we have structuring your content with headings. Including headings in your text content that are visible and descriptive helps section out your content and makes it easier to read. No one enjoys scrolling through gigantic walls of text, and adding semantic headings also help those with assistive technologies, such as screen readers, jump to the content they want to read. And lastly, make sure your content is simple and easy to read. When you're trying to do a task online, it can cause undue stress or friction if the user has to read something repeatedly to understand what it means. Keeping your content clear and simple will ensure that everyone can understand this information. On top of this, avoid abbreviations and jargon where possible, as this makes information easier to understand for first-time users to your website or people who might be completely new to the topic. as some of you might be here today.
Thank you. If the world of accessibility and WCAG is still boggling your mind, same, you're not alone. Don't worry, we've come prepared and have some helpful resources. Firstly, Intopia's YouTube channel has a nice collection of long and short videos discussing all things accessible. My top picks are the Accessibility Fundamentals series, and if you're still confused by WCAG, then the WCAG 2.2 at a Glance series will help you unpack it into bite-sized pieces. If you're still confused, no worries, just replay the video. The WCAG 2.2 map outlines an overview of WCAG in a visual format, which can help if you're a visual learner like yours truly. It's also available in a number of different languages. I personally have it hung up in my office and I use it daily. If you have it in your budget, I'd hardly encourage you to print it off, tax write-off. Lastly, the Accessibility Not Checklist. This isn't a full training of the WCAG guidelines from A to Z, but rather a practical role-based overview of key things to consider across your team. Whether you're in development, UX design, content design, or another role, it acts as a helpful sanity check to ensure you haven't missed anything important and to connect the dots between different disciplines. You can find these resources on the Intopia website at intopia.digital/resources. What's happening today? Today's keynote is from Fireside Chat with Jennison Asuncion, plus 10 more presentations and 10 more tomorrow. Stick around for this evening's networking event. Unfortunately, there is no theme, but that's okay.
It's okay. Okay.
Have a fantastic alley camp. Hopefully you know what alley means now, and you can enjoy the rest of your few days.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Alley Camp, celebrating 10 years.